What if one invention could fix everything? I mean everything. The grid. Poverty. The food crisis. The education system. What if someone finally figured out how to make the American dream real again? The question had been echoing in Jessica Moore's head since the day the world stopped making sense. That day started like any other, until it didn't. It was a Tuesday, unusually hot for October in Ohio, and Jessica was sipping cold coffee, staring at her inbox with a growing pit in her stomach. Due to unforeseen circumstances, your position has been eliminated, the email read. Just 12 words. 12 words to collapse a decade of loyalty, sacrifice, and late nights spent debugging someone else's dreams. She clicked it closed without breathing. Then came the second blow. The school called, Emily had a fever, again. Jessica's daughter had been sick more days than not this month, and with no more sick days to burn, she'd have to choose, job hunting or parenting. Again. She chose Emily. Always Emily. By noon, her savings account was under $300. By 3, the car wouldn't start. By 5, she stood in line at the food pantry for the first time in her life, holding a ticket like it was a scarlet letter. And as if the universe needed to throw salt on the wound, that's when the world heard the news. Elon Musk announces groundbreaking new invention, promising to solve America's biggest problems. The headline flashed across the dusty television above the food pantry's checkout counter. People froze. Forks hovered midair. Jessica looked up, dazed. A reporter stood outside what looked like a massive desert compound in Nevada. Project Unity, the screen read. Musk appeared, flanked by guards, eyes sparkling with that maddening mix of genius and mischief. "We've done it," he said. "We've created a system that can solve poverty, energy inequality, and collapse-proof our economy. This isn't just technology. It's transformation." Jessica blinked hard. No one spoke. Even the man next to her, who had just told her he hadn't eaten in 2 days, was watching in stunned silence. She laughed out loud, not because it was funny, but because it felt like the punchline to a joke nobody knew they were part of. Solve everything? Really? After a year that had ripped her life apart piece by piece, Elon Musk wanted to talk about saving America with a machine. Still, something about his eyes, some mixture of defiance and sorrow, hit her in a place she thought had gone numb. On the way home, she asked Emily, "What would you fix first, if you could fix anything?" Emily, cheeks flushed from fever, said, "I'd fix you, Mommy. So you don't have to be tired all the time." Jessica didn't answer. Just kept driving in silence, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. That night, while Emily slept, Jessica lay awake scrolling through the announcement, watching interview after interview. Unity, they said, could map energy use in real time, redirect surplus to underserved regions, predict food shortages, even calculate basic income stipends for families below the poverty line, all through a decentralized AI system powered by solar and satellite fusion. "This is the next electricity," Musk declared. "We're not asking governments for permission anymore. We're building the future whether they like it or not." Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The host's voice crackled through the feed. Jessica ignored him. Her mind was racing, not with hope, but with dread. Because 15 years ago, in another life, she helped build systems like this. Not this big, not this bold, but the foundation. At Tesla. Back when she believed technology could heal things. Before she left, bitter and burnt out, after learning how easily people could twist dreams into weapons. A week passed. Jessica applied for jobs no one was hiring for. Sold her engagement ring. Fixed the car with a YouTube tutorial and duct tape. And then, an email appeared. No subject line. Just one sentence. From a sender she hadn't seen in over a decade, you'll want to see this. Elon didn't build it alone. The sender was Claire Emerson, a woman Jessica once worked under at Tesla, a brilliant systems engineer with a conscience sharper than her code. Claire had vanished after whistleblowing on a project Jessica had walked away from. If she was back, something serious was happening. The message contained a location and date, 4 days from now, Nevada. A private demonstration of Project Unity. Transportation will be provided. No press. Strict confidentiality. Jessica stared at the screen like it was a trap. Because it probably was. But still, her fingers hovered over the reply button. Emily walked in, rubbing her eyes. "Mom. You're still awake." Jessica shut the laptop quickly. "Yeah, honey. Just finishing something." "Is it about the machine?" Jessica hesitated. "Yeah. Sort of." Emily climbed into her lap. "Do you think it can really help people?" Jessica didn't know how to lie to her daughter. "I think someone wants it to. I think a lot of people want to believe it can." Emily yawned. "I think maybe it can help us. We just have to believe, right?" Jessica kissed her forehead. "Maybe." That word was doing a lot of work lately. The next morning, she told her father, a retired steelworker whose trust in billionaires ran somewhere between non-existent and hostile. "You're not going to Nevada," he said flatly, gripping his cane like a weapon. "You don't even know if it's safe." Jessica poured coffee. "I don't know if staying here is safe. We're down to food stamps and hope." "That man is not a savior," her father growled. "He's a showman. Don't confuse sparks with fire." "I'm not," she said. "But if there's even a 1% chance this helps Emily," he cut her off. "Emily needs you. Not some billionaire's circus." Jessica slammed her cup down. "Then what do you suggest?" "I keep watching everything fall apart." Silence. The silence of two people who loved each other but didn't know how to say it without screaming. That night, Jessica packed a small bag. She didn't say goodbye, just wrote a note in case she didn't make it back. Emily would stay with her grandfather. It was only a weekend. Just a meeting. A chance to see what this unity thing really was. At least, that's what she told herself. But deep down, Jessica knew, this wasn't just a weekend. This was a door. And once she stepped through it, there was no coming back. Before there was unity, before the desert invitations and national headlines, there was just Jessica Moore, a bright, headstrong girl from Akron, Ohio who believed in making things better with her hands. From the moment she could hold a screwdriver, she wanted to take the world apart and understand how it worked. Her mother used to joke that Jessica disassembled the toaster before she could tie her shoes. By high school, she was building her own computers. By 22, she'd graduated from MIT with honors and a full ride, one of only 5 women in her mechanical engineering cohort. She had fire, she had faith, and she had no idea how quickly both could burn out. After graduation, she went straight to Tesla, her dream job, her golden ticket. At first, it was everything she'd hoped for: innovation, autonomy, excitement. She worked under Claire Emerson, a woman who pushed her, mentored her, and believed in her even when Jessica didn't believe in herself. She learned fast, broke faster, and rebuilt stronger. But the culture that had once inspired her began to eat away at her ideals. Projects were rushed. Corners were cut. Jessica started seeing changes in data that didn't match test results. Algorithms optimized for investor returns instead of user safety. She raised questions. Claire did too. And then Claire disappeared, transferred, they said. Quietly, without notice. Jessica got the message: stay in line, or disappear too. She stayed 6 more months. Then she quit, packed up her life, and moved home. Her mother was dying. Cancer, aggressive. Jessica gave up the work that once defined her to care for the woman who made her believe she could change the world. After the funeral, she stayed in Akron, took a teaching job, fell in love with a contractor named Evan Moore, got married, had Emily, and tried to believe this could be enough. For a while, it was. Evan was kind, strong, but the economy hit hard, and when construction dried up, he dried up with it. He turned bitter, then cruel, and finally gone. Divorce papers on the kitchen table like a resignation letter from the life she thought she was building. Left alone with a 5-year-old, a sick father, and bills that didn't stop for broken hearts. She tried to freelance, tried to teach, tried to re-enter tech, but every door closed. No recent experience, too many gaps, overqualified, undercurrent of ageism. She sent out 100 resumes, got 5 interviews, 0 offers. It didn't help that she had opinions, strong ones, about the direction the industry had taken, the ethics sacrificed in the name of scale. She didn't play politics well, never had. Her friends said she was too principled. Her enemies said she was too difficult. But Jessica knew who she was. And that made the failures hurt more. Because she knew she could have helped. She knew how to fix things. She just never got the chance. Her relationship with her father was complicated. James Moore had worked 35 years in a steel plant before automation took everything. He raised Jessica on discipline and toughness. He loved her, but he didn't always know how to show it. When Evan left, James moved in to help. He became Emily's rock, even as his body gave out, his joints stiffening, his breathing worsening. Every day, Jessica saw the man who built her slowly coming undone. She hated it. She hated that she couldn't fix him. She hated that he wouldn't let her. And she hated that, in quiet moments, he reminded her so much of herself. Emily was the light in all of it. Bright, curious, sensitive. A little version of Jessica, but softer around the edges. She loved puzzles, loved asking questions, loved the stars. "Are we made of the same stuff as comets?" she'd asked once. Jessica told her yes. It was one of the few times she felt certain of anything. They didn't have much, second-hand clothes, public school, a borrowed laptop, but they had books, bedtime stories, and big dreams. Jessica kept Emily insulated from the worst of it, but kids always know. They feel tension in the air like weather. And lately, the forecast had been storm after storm. Jessica's nights were sleepless, her days mechanical. Get up. Get Emily to school. Search jobs. Stretch meals. Worry. Repeat. The news made everything worse. Layoffs, protests, climate disasters. Jessica stopped watching. What was the point? The world didn't want people like her anymore, people who questioned, people who cared too much. And then unity happened. And Claire's message happened. And something inside Jessica, something she thought had gone extinct, flickered back to life. That's why, standing in the terminal at Cleveland Hopkins International, waiting for a stranger to escort her to a private plane bound for Nevada, Jessica felt both fear and something else she hadn't felt in years: purpose. The man who met her was young, polite, said little. He checked her ID, nodded once, and gestured toward the tarmac. The jet was matte black, unmarked, sleek as a scalpel. Inside, there were 5 other passengers. A woman in military uniform. A man in a white lab coat with ink-stained fingers. A teenager with VR glasses and a bored expression. No one spoke. Jessica sat, buckled in, stared out the window. As they took off, she wondered, not for the first time, what the hell she was doing. When she landed, everything smelled like heat. Nevada's sun baked the earth into cracked mosaic. A convoy of electric shuttles waited to drive them to the site. No signs. No branding. Just silence and wind. As the compound emerged on the horizon, Jessica felt her throat tighten. It looked like something out of science fiction, tall silver structures, solar towers, mirrored walls that shimmered like water. But beneath the beauty was power, and she felt it hum in the ground like a secret waiting to be told. Inside, they were greeted by biometric scans and AI drones that guided them through luminous hallways. Everything felt clinical, surreal. They were led to an auditorium. Small. Intimate. At the front stood Claire. Older now, lines around her eyes, but unmistakable. Jessica's heart jolted. Claire smiled, a real smile, and mouthed, "You made it." Jessica nodded, swallowed. The lights dimmed. A screen descended. And then, without fanfare, Elon Musk walked onto the stage. No suit. Just a black t-shirt, jeans, and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in days. He didn't speak immediately. He let silence hang, thick and charged. Then he said, "I want to welcome you to something we never thought would be possible. Not because we couldn't build it, but because we didn't think people would trust it." He looked straight at Jessica. We were wrong. Jessica didn't know what he meant. Not yet. But in that moment, something shifted. She wasn't just an observer anymore. She was part of something. Maybe even the reason it existed. The first thing Jessica noticed was the silence, not the absence of sound, but the presence of something deeper, like the entire facility had been designed to dampen noise and absorb fear. The Unity compound didn't hum with electricity the way a normal tech center would, it breathed with the slow, careful rhythm of something alive. Claire took the stage after Elon, standing beside him like she had every right to be there, which she did. "You've all been chosen because you represent what this technology needs to succeed," she said, voice steady, eyes sweeping across the room. "Engineers, skeptics, veterans, dreamers. You're not just here to witness Unity. You're here to test its soul." The screen behind them lit up with the Unity symbol, a circular interface wrapped around a glowing core, half circuitry, half sunrise. Claire explained what the media hadn't. Unity wasn't just a device, it was a decentralized, adaptive system built to redistribute energy, automate essential services, and support a universal basic economy, all while remaining transparent and community-owned. "It's designed to evolve based on need," Claire said. "Not profit. It learns from usage, not politics. It can be used to stabilize a neighborhood, power a city, or sustain a nation. But only if people believe in it. And only if people like you help us keep it honest." Jessica didn't say a word. She just watched, listened, memorized. Her mind ticked like an old engine coming back to life, processing data, evaluating the structure, identifying potential vulnerabilities. The tech was astonishing, light years beyond what she'd seen a decade ago. But the scope of it was terrifying. Not because it didn't work, but because it did. And anything that worked this well could be used to control, not just empower. After the briefing, they were split into smaller groups and taken to different wings of the compound. Jessica's guide, a tall woman named Marisol with cybernetic implants along her neck, led her to a chamber labeled Simulations. Inside was a mock-up of a neighborhood, complete with power lines, water systems, food storage, and infrastructure dashboards. "You're going to run this town," Marisol said. "You've got limited resources, 3 days, and a crisis every 6 hours. Let's see what Unity does in your hands." Jessica rolled her eyes. Gamification. She hated this part of modern engineering, making the end of the world feel like a board game. But once the simulation started, she forgot her cynicism. The system was breathtaking. It responded instantly to requests, rerouted energy based on real-time climate data, warned of outages before they happened, and suggested ethical trade-offs based on predicted outcomes. And more than that, it adapted to her. It started asking questions. Would you prioritize hospitals over schools in a blackout? Would you ration food equally or by contribution? Should data from this town be shared anonymously or preserved locally? She answered carefully, noting how her decisions shaped outcomes. After 2 days, her simulated town had reduced waste by 40%, created 86 new jobs, and tripled access to clean water. But it had also increased surveillance, flagged 2 citizens as potential threats based on behavioral algorithms, and denied a small business a startup grant due to low collective impact. Jessica stared at the screen, uneasy. The tech worked. But at what cost? And who decided what was fair? That night, at dinner in the Unity commissary, she sat alone until Claire approached, carrying 2 plates. "Still allergic to onions?" Claire asked. Jessica nodded, surprised she remembered. They ate quietly, watching the sun set behind the solar towers. After a while, Claire spoke. "You don't trust it." Jessica looked down at her tray. "I trust it to work. I don't trust people not to weaponize it." Claire sighed. "Neither do I. That's why you're here. That's why I brought you back in." Jessica looked up sharply. "You built this?" Claire nodded. "Not alone. But a big part. After Tesla. I disappeared for a while. Worked off-grid. Then Elon reached out. Said he wanted to do something different. Something real. I didn't believe him at first. But then he showed me the framework. He wasn't looking for yes men this time. He wanted fail-safes. Voices of dissent. He said we couldn't build a future unless we had people in the room willing to fight for what mattered." Jessica narrowed her eyes. "And you think I'm one of those people?" "I know you are." Claire leaned in. "We're not offering you a job, Jess. We're offering you a decision. Stay. Help shape Unity. Or walk away and watch someone else do it." Jessica didn't sleep that night. She walked the perimeter of the compound, watched the lights flicker in the towers, and thought about Emily, what kind of world her daughter would inherit. And whether Jessica had the right to shape it. The next morning, she stayed. But everything changed by lunchtime. A group of visitors, investors, politicians, maybe even military, arrived unannounced. Jessica saw them from a distance, but she recognized one of the faces immediately, Bradley Keene. Her former co-worker. Brilliant. Ruthless. The man who once told her that ethics were for people who couldn't win. If Bradley was here, something was wrong. That night, she confronted Claire. "Why is he here?" Claire frowned. "I didn't know he was coming. Elon invited him, apparently. Claims he needs opposition in the room to test the system's integrity." Jessica's gut twisted. "No. He's here to take control. That's what he does." Claire didn't disagree. "Then we stay louder. We build guardrails. We make sure people like him don't get to write the rules." But Jessica had seen this play out before. One powerful system. One reckless ego. One bad compromise. That's all it took. She told herself she'd leave in the morning. That it wasn't worth it. That it was too big, too dangerous. But then something happened that changed everything. She got a video call from Emily. Just before bedtime, choppy signal, pixelated face. "Hi Mommy. Grandpa says you're building a new world." Jessica smiled, forced calm into her voice. "Something like that." Emily leaned closer to the camera. "Can you build one where nobody gets left out?" Jessica swallowed hard. "I'm trying." Emily nodded solemnly. "Okay. Then don't stop." The screen froze for a second, then the call ended. Jessica sat there, phone in her lap, staring at nothing. And for the first time in years, she felt something stronger than fear. Responsibility. Not to the tech. Not to Elon. Not even to Claire. But to that little girl who still believed the world could be better. Jessica closed her eyes, took a breath, and whispered, "Okay. I won't stop." And just like that, she knew she wasn't going home. Not yet. She was going to stay. She was going to fight. Because if Unity had the power to change everything, then someone had to make sure it changed things the right way. The next phase of Jessica's stay at the Unity facility wasn't about theory or simulations anymore, it was boots on the ground, live integration trials in carefully chosen test zones across the country. Elon called it, The Awakening, a series of controlled, real-world environments where Unity would be deployed to demonstrate its capacity to solve critical systemic problems in under 90 days. Jessica didn't sleep the night before deployment. She paced her temporary quarters in the compound, reviewing data streams, public reaction metrics, and security protocols until the sun broke across the Nevada horizon in a slow, golden wave. Her assignment came in quietly: South Bend, Indiana, an industrial town hollowed out by years of job flight and infrastructural neglect, once known for its steel and now known only for its decay. Jessica hadn't been back to the Midwest in years, but something about the choice felt too personal to be coincidence. Claire confirmed it over coffee. "We thought you'd know how to speak to them," she said. "You grew up around this. You understand what they've lost." Jessica didn't argue. She just boarded the black electric transport with her satchel full of schematics and a mind full of doubt. The journey felt endless and empty. Flat roads, broken signage, sun-bleached barns barely clinging to existence. When they pulled into the South Bend pilot site, Jessica saw the Unity capsule at the center of a cleared lot, shaped like a silver monolith, pulsating gently with internal energy. It stood surrounded by skeptics, dozens of town leaders, citizens, a few scattered journalists. Some held signs. Most folded their arms. Jessica stepped out and walked straight toward them. She didn't try to sell anything. She didn't use buzzwords or flashy slides. She simply asked a question: what's the one thing that would make your lives better today? The crowd didn't answer at first. Then an older woman, skin like sun-wrinkled paper and voice full of gravel, shouted, "Jobs that pay more than gas money." Another man added, "Water that don't taste like rust." A teenager, maybe 17, said, "A school with working bathrooms." Jessica nodded after each. Then she said, "That's why we're here. Not to tell you what to need, but to build what you decide." Unity listens. It adapts. It only works if you take control of it. Someone in the back scoffed, "Yeah, right. And next you'll say it cures cancer too." Jessica didn't flinch. "No. But maybe it'll keep the lights on long enough for your clinic to function at full capacity." That got a few nods. Enough to get started. Over the next week, Jessica worked around the clock, living out of a temporary trailer near the Unity node, meeting with town leaders, local teachers, farmers, and utility operators. The system's interface allowed her to draw from a real-time resource pool, excess solar energy from Nevada, surplus food from California's inland farms, even emergency broadband from orbiting Starlink satellites. Within 48 hours, water filtration was restored to 2 major neighborhoods. Within 5 days, Unity had allocated microgrants to 3 local businesses and installed energy-efficient heating in the elementary school. And with each improvement, more people got involved, not just observing, but controlling, voting, designing. Jessica wasn't leading them. She was unlocking them. But as the town bloomed, so did resistance. A group calling themselves the Guards started protesting outside the Unity perimeter, claiming the system was a surveillance ploy, a Trojan horse for federal control. Jessica recognized the leader from a viral clip days earlier. He was a former defense contractor turned conspiracy influencer. His voice carried through a megaphone as he shouted, "Don't let them buy your freedom with free lights. Once they've got your power, they'll take your voice." The crowd around him swelled with each passing day. Tensions rose. Jessica asked for additional security. Elon said no. "We need to prove this isn't militarized," he said in a secure call. Let the truth do the heavy lifting. Jessica clenched her jaw. Truth doesn't carry mace. He laughed, then sobered. You've got this. Show them what it's for. But she wasn't sure anymore. One night, after a town meeting ended with shouting and tears, she sat under the cold Indiana stars outside the Unity Hub, sipping bad coffee and wondering if this was all a huge mistake. That's when Marcus arrived. He was 23, brilliant, and utterly unfiltered. He'd been assigned as a Unity system analyst, and in just 1 week, had already modified part of the town's traffic grid optimization to reduce fuel consumption by 18%. He plopped down next to Jessica without asking. You look like someone who's calculating the odds of a graceful collapse, he said. Jessica half smiled. More like whether I can pack up in under 10 minutes if this place turns into a war zone. Marcus leaned back on his elbows, eyes scanning the sky. You know what the problem is? Enlighten me. People don't trust what works if they didn't invent it themselves. Jessica snorted. That's not new. No, but Unity is. And that scares the hell out of them. He sat up and looked her in the eye. But it's also the best thing I've ever seen. And you're the only one here who's treating it like it matters more than your career. That's why they follow you. Jessica frowned. No one's following me. They're surviving. Same thing, he said, standing. But it feels different when they choose to do it together. As the days passed, Unity's presence became more tangible. People started calling it the grid, as if it had always been there. Crime dropped. School attendance rose. Local produce replaced chain store junk. One woman told Jessica her son smiled for the first time in months because the heat stayed on all night. That same night, the compound was vandalized. Spray paint. Broken panels. A dead raccoon nailed to the interface console. The message, you don't belong here. Claire called immediately. It's starting, she said. What's starting? Jessica asked. Pushback. Real pushback. We're seeing it at other sites too. Coordinated disinfo, protests, sabotage. Someone's orchestrating this. Jessica knew exactly who. Bradley Keene. She hadn't seen him since Nevada, but his fingerprints were all over the opposition, shifting narratives, weaponizing doubt, buying influence through shell groups. And it was working. The next morning, a local news anchor ran a segment claiming Unity was storing facial recognition data without consent. It was false, but the damage was done. Jessica spent the whole day in meetings trying to prove the accusation wrong, while the real problem festered, trust. She asked Unity to pull engagement sentiment data from community nodes. The system reported a 17% drop in support in under 24 hours. Jessica looked at the numbers and felt panic spike in her chest. She knew what came next: fear, withdrawal, rejection. It was the cycle of every revolution crushed under the weight of suspicion. That night, she called Emily. They talked about school, her science project, and her new obsession with robotics. I'm building a helper robot, Emily said. His name's Dusty. Jessica smiled. Why Dusty? Because he's always cleaning up stuff. Like you. Jessica's throat tightened. You think I clean things up? Yeah, Emily said simply. Even the scary stuff. Jessica ended the call and stared at her reflection in the dark screen. She wasn't sure if Emily's faith was her greatest strength or her deepest burden. But it gave her resolve. She walked to the Unity console, opened an access port, and began writing code. Not to strengthen the system, but to make it more human. She added a feedback feature, anonymous and voluntary, that allowed residents to submit experiences, not just data points. Stories, testimonials, fears, hopes. Within 12 hours, over 200 entries were submitted. Some were angry. Some confused. But many were grateful. Many were ready to fight to keep what they'd built. Jessica compiled them, printed them, and read them aloud at the next town hall. No spin. No promises. Just voices. The room was quiet when she finished. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then the room erupted, not in applause, but in ownership. They weren't just using Unity. They were defending it. Jessica realized in that moment that technology didn't save people. People saved people, with help, with hope, with tools that gave them back control. Unity wasn't the miracle. The miracle was what happened when people believed they deserved better. Jessica stepped off the stage, heart pounding. She knew it wasn't over. Not even close. But South Bend had chosen. They weren't giving Unity up without a fight. The days after the town hall felt different, charged with a fragile energy that Jessica hadn't seen since she was a kid watching her father rally the community against the factory shutdowns. It was hope, but also vigilance. Unity's pilot in South Bend had become more than a test, it was a battleground for the future. Every morning she arrived at the site, the silver monolith pulsing steadily as if sensing the tension in the air. The local news was still biased, fueled by opposition groups with deep pockets and louder megaphones, but the people's voices were growing louder too. Jessica's phone buzzed constantly, messages of thanks, calls for help, offers to volunteer. The guard hadn't disappeared, but their ranks had thinned as townsfolk saw a real change in their daily lives. One morning, while reviewing the latest resource allocation charts, Jessica's comm system beeped with an urgent alert. A severe storm was approaching from the west, predicted to bring high winds, flooding, and power outages that could cripple South Bend's fragile infrastructure. The timing couldn't have been worse. Jessica immediately coordinated with Unity's algorithms to preemptively reroute energy reserves and prepare emergency services. The system flagged vulnerable zones and suggested temporary shelters. She sent alerts through community channels, urging everyone to stay safe and prepared. The storm hit harder than anyone expected. Rain battered the windows of Jessica's trailer, lightning splitting the sky in jagged cracks. Power flickered but never fully went out. Unity kept systems online, water pumps ran, hospitals stayed lit, communication lines remained open. Jessica walked the perimeter after the worst had passed, stepping through puddles and debris. The town looked battered but resilient. People emerged cautiously, eyes wide with a mix of fear and relief. A local man named Pete, a grizzled mechanic who'd helped restore the community's bus fleet, caught Jessica's arm. "Didn't think we'd make it through that one," he said, voice rough. "Unity kept us breathing." "Thank you." Jessica nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. But she knew the real battle was just beginning. In the days that followed, the system detected a spike in resource requests, medical supplies, food, clean water. Unity responded, dispatching aid from nearby regions that had surplus capacity. The community's trust in the technology deepened, but so did its visibility. Bradley Keene was still in the shadows, pulling strings behind the scenes. Jessica saw the headlines escalate, accusations of data breaches, stories about supposed government surveillance, claims that Unity was a tool for corporate takeover. It was a relentless campaign, designed to fracture the fragile coalition Jessica was trying to build. One afternoon, she received a direct message from Claire: "We need a public statement. Something big. Something undeniable." Jessica drafted a plan to invite independent experts, scientists, ethicists, community leaders, to audit the system publicly. It was risky. If the audit found flaws, Unity's credibility could collapse overnight. But it was necessary. When the day of the audit arrived, the facility was packed. Cameras rolled, questions flew, data streams displayed live. The experts probed Unity's architecture, scrutinized its algorithms, examined its data privacy policies. Hours passed. Tension thickened the air. Then, one by one, the panelists nodded in approval. The verdict was clear: Unity was transparent, ethical, and innovative, though not without areas to improve, which the team welcomed openly. The live broadcast reached millions. For the first time, the narrative shifted. Unity wasn't some shadowy experiment, it was a beacon of possibility. Jessica felt a surge of pride but kept her focus sharp. "This is just the start," she told the press. "Our work is far from done." Back in South Bend, the community rallied around the news. Attendance at Unity workshops soared. Local schools incorporated Unity's educational modules into their curriculum. Small businesses thrived with access to new funding streams. Jessica saw transformations not just in infrastructure but in spirit. Yet beneath the surface, divisions remained. Some residents feared dependence on technology, others resented outside influence. Jessica held weekly forums, inviting dialogue, addressing concerns, sharing success stories. The process was messy, slow, human. One evening, after a particularly heated debate about data privacy, Jessica found herself sitting alone outside the Unity hub, staring at the stars. Marcus joined her quietly, handing her a cup of coffee. "You're doing something hard," he said softly. "The kind of hard that changes everything." Jessica smiled tiredly. "I'm just trying not to break." Marcus shook his head. "You're stronger than you think. And you're not alone." Just then, her comm system beeped with an urgent alert. Another pilot site was under attack, a coordinated cyber assault aimed at crippling Unity's network. Jessica's heart pounded. If South Bend was vulnerable, so was every other community depending on Unity. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity, working alongside cybersecurity teams, coordinating with local authorities, keeping the public calm. The assault was sophisticated, relentless, but Unity's adaptive defenses held strong. The attack failed, but it was a stark reminder. Unity's promise came with powerful enemies. After the crisis, Jessica addressed the community via live stream. "We faced darkness, but together we stood firm. Unity is not just a technology, it's a movement. And movements survive because of the people who believe in them." Emily's words echoed in her mind, "Don't stop." Jessica realized then that her fight was no longer just about technology or politics, it was about hope, resilience, and the belief that a better future was possible. As the sun rose over South Bend, Jessica felt a quiet determination settle in her bones. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, Unity could change everything. After the cyber attack, Jessica felt the weight of responsibility more heavily than ever. Unity was no longer just a hopeful experiment in a struggling town, it had become a symbol of possibility for millions, and a target for powerful forces determined to stop it. The nights were long and restless. She pored over security logs, reviewed community feedback, and strategized with her team to strengthen defenses while preserving the open, collaborative nature of the project. Elon's vision echoed in her mind, technology should empower, not control. But maintaining that balance was a tightrope walk. One morning, Claire brought her a surprising invitation, a summit in Washington, D.C. where policymakers, technologists, and community leaders would debate the future of technology in society. The headline, "Unity at the Crossroads, Innovation or Intrusion?" Jessica hesitated. She was wary of political theater, but this was an opportunity to make Unity's case on a national stage. She agreed. At the summit, Jessica found herself surrounded by skeptics and supporters alike. Senators questioned the system's transparency. Privacy advocates pressed for greater safeguards. Business leaders eyed Unity as a potential competitor or partner. Jessica listened, answered honestly, and shared stories from South Bend, not abstract data, but real people whose lives had changed. She spoke about Pete, the mechanic who helped restore buses, Emily, who dreamed of building robots, the woman who said her son smiled for the first time in months because the heat stayed on. Her words softened the room. After her speech, a journalist asked, "Jessica, what's the biggest challenge you've faced with Unity?" She thought for a moment, then said, "Trust. Building it, maintaining it, earning it every day." The audience applauded. Outside the conference hall, Jessica met a group of young activists pushing for more equitable access to technology. They challenged her to think bigger. Not just one town, but nationwide. Jessica felt a spark. She realized Unity needed to evolve. Back in South Bend, momentum was building. The pilot site had become a model of community-led innovation. But Jessica knew scaling would be complicated. Each town had unique needs, cultures, and challenges. Unity had to be flexible, adaptive, and deeply local. She spent weeks analyzing data from multiple sites, identifying patterns and differences. She convened focus groups, encouraged feedback, and tested new features designed to give communities more control. Meanwhile, Bradley Keene's influence lingered in whispers and online shadows. Jessica received anonymous tips about new disinformation campaigns targeting Unity's funding and public image. It was clear the battle would stretch far beyond technology. It was political, cultural, and deeply personal. One evening, Jessica attended a community dinner hosted by local leaders. The hall was modest but filled with warmth and determination. Over plates of homemade food, people shared their stories of loss, resilience, and hope. Jessica listened, reminded again why she was here. When a little girl tugged on her sleeve and asked if Unity could help her school's broken playground, Jessica smiled and promised they would try. That night, she stayed late at the Unity Hub, working on new algorithms to prioritize community requests based on urgency and impact. She was interrupted by a call from Elon. His voice was calm but urgent. "Jessica, the federal government is watching closely now. We have to prepare for oversight, audits, regulations, maybe even legal challenges. But remember, they can't stop what people want." His words steeled her resolve. Over the next months, Jessica balanced building Unity's capabilities with navigating an increasingly complex political landscape. She testified before congressional committees, engaged with civil rights organizations, and worked to establish ethical guidelines with independent advisors. The media spotlight intensified. Some outlets praised Unity's transformative potential, others sowed doubt with sensational headlines. Through it all, Jessica held fast to the core belief that technology must serve humanity, not the other way around. As winter turned to spring, Unity expanded to 5 more pilot towns. Each had its own story, its own battles, but the thread of hope remained constant. Jessica's team grew, welcoming engineers, social workers, and activists united by a shared mission. One afternoon, she received a letter from Emily's school, a request for a special presentation on robotics and technology. Jessica prepared a talk that blended science with stories, ending with a challenge. "What will you create to change the world?" Standing before the eager faces, she felt a deep sense of purpose. This was why she fought. Yet, despite progress, challenges persisted. In one town, a major utility company launched a campaign against Unity, fearing loss of control and profits. In another, local politics threatened to stall funding. Jessica learned that technology alone couldn't solve America's biggest problems. It required people willing to collaborate, compromise, and sometimes confront uncomfortable truths. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of negotiations, Jessica sat alone on a rooftop overlooking South Bend. The city lights flickered below, a testament to the hard-won progress. Her comm system buzzed. It was a message from Marcus: "Don't forget to breathe. We're in this together." She smiled, feeling the weight lift slightly. Jessica knew the road ahead would be long and winding, but for the first time in years, she felt ready. Unity was no longer just Elon Musk's invention, it was a movement fueled by real people, real stories, and real hope. And together, they could change everything. Spring in South Bend brought renewal, but with it new challenges that tested Jessica's resolve and the true strength of Unity. After months of growth and cautious optimism, a sudden budget shortfall in the state government threatened to cut funding for all pilot programs. The announcement hit the community like a thunderclap. Jessica watched the news broadcast with a sinking feeling as local leaders voiced their frustration and fear. Without funds, the progress made could unravel in weeks. Determined not to let years of effort go to waste, Jessica convened an emergency virtual meeting with her team, local officials, and community activists. Ideas flew fast and furious: crowdfunding campaigns, partnerships with local businesses, tapping into philanthropic grants. But none seemed enough to cover the looming gap. She decided to take a bold step. Drawing on her childhood lessons about perseverance and community power, Jessica organized a Unity Festival, a massive public event designed to showcase the project's successes and rally support from every corner of the state. The festival would combine technology demos, local art, live music, and workshops on sustainability and digital literacy. Jessica knew the stakes were high. It was more than fundraising, it was a public declaration that the future belonged to people willing to fight for it. Planning consumed her days and nights. She enlisted Marcus to help with logistics, Claire to coordinate media coverage, and Emily's school to perform a robotics showcase. The town buzzed with excitement and skepticism alike. The Guard resurfaced too, holding counter-protests warning of corporate takeover and digital enslavement. Jessica anticipated their presence but refused to be intimidated. On the festival day, the air was thick with energy. Families wandered through exhibits where Unity-controlled drones planted trees, smart sensors monitored pollution levels, and 3D printers built affordable housing components. Local vendors sold homemade food and crafts. Musicians played songs about resilience and hope. Jessica took the stage to a roaring crowd, her voice steady as she spoke about the power of collaboration, innovation, and trust. "This is our moment," she said. "Together, we're proving that technology can serve humanity, not replace it." Throughout the day, she saw the faces of people transformed by the experience: a retired teacher inspired to learn coding, a small business owner exploring new markets, a teenager dreaming of a future in engineering. But as the sun set, tension flared. The Guard's counter-protesters grew more vocal, and a small scuffle broke out near the festival perimeter. Jessica's heart pounded as she rushed to calm both sides, urging peaceful dialogue. It was a fragile truce, but it held. The festival raised more funds than anyone had expected, enough to sustain Unity's pilot programs for another year. More importantly, it sparked a renewed sense of community ownership that no budget could buy. In the weeks that followed, Jessica worked with state legislators to propose a bill formalizing support for community-driven technology initiatives like Unity. The process was grueling, filled with lobbying, debates, and compromises. She learned firsthand how messy democracy could be, but also how powerful when voices united for change. Then came a surprise. Elon Musk personally called Jessica with a new opportunity: to present Unity's model at a global innovation summit in Silicon Valley, alongside some of the world's leading thinkers and entrepreneurs. It was an invitation to elevate Unity from a national pilot to an international phenomenon. Jessica felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Leaving South Bend for the high-stakes world of tech giants and global media would be daunting. But she knew the mission was bigger than any one place. At the summit, Jessica found herself on a stage bathed in bright lights, facing an audience hungry for breakthroughs. She shared South Bend's story, not just as a success, but as proof that technology must be human-centered, adaptable, and transparent. Questions followed, some challenging, others curious. A venture capitalist asked how Unity could scale without losing local control. Jessica answered honestly: scaling means listening more. Each community has its own voice, and Unity's job is to amplify, not override, those voices. After the session, Jessica mingled with innovators and policymakers. She met a woman leading a renewable energy project in Africa, a man developing AI tools for healthcare access, and a teenager from New York building apps to fight food insecurity. They shared ideas, struggles, and hopes. Jessica felt part of something larger: a global movement toward tech that empowers people. But the summit also exposed Unity to new scrutiny. A high-profile journalist published an article questioning the system's long-term sustainability and potential privacy risks. The piece sparked heated debates online, reigniting old fears and new doubts. Jessica knew the conversation was far from over. Returning to South Bend, she was greeted as both a local hero and a lightning rod. The community's faith remained strong, but the challenges ahead demanded greater transparency, education, and ongoing engagement. Jessica doubled down on outreach efforts, hosting workshops on digital literacy and data rights. She encouraged residents to take active roles in shaping Unity's future. Meanwhile, Emily's Robotics Club won a regional competition, a testament to the inspiration and opportunities sparked by Jessica's work. One evening, Jessica sat with Marcus reviewing long-term strategy plans. "We've come far," he said, "but this is just the beginning. The real test is whether we can keep growing without losing ourselves." Jessica nodded, feeling the weight of his words. The stakes had never been higher, but so had the potential for transformation. She thought back to her father's wisdom: change is hard, but necessary. And it starts with believing. As spring gave way to summer, Jessica felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be winding and uncertain, but with Unity, people's voices could shape a better tomorrow. And that was a future worth fighting for. Summer in South Bend brought both promise and pressure as Unity's expansion gained momentum but also attracted new scrutiny. Jessica found herself navigating an increasingly complex web of expectations from the community, the media, investors, and policymakers. The excitement that had fueled the pilot phase was tempered by the realities of scaling a revolutionary technology in a nation grappling with deep social and political divides. One morning, while reviewing user engagement data, Jessica noticed a troubling pattern: participation from certain neighborhoods was significantly lower than others. These areas, predominantly low-income and historically marginalized, were missing out on Unity's resources. It was a stark reminder that technology alone couldn't erase systemic inequality. Jessica called an urgent meeting with her team. "If we want Unity to truly solve America's biggest problems, we have to reach everyone, not just the easy parts," she said. The team brainstormed strategies: targeted outreach programs, partnerships with local nonprofits, mobile units to bring Unity's services directly to underserved areas. They also planned to train community ambassadors, trusted locals who could bridge cultural and technological gaps. Implementing these plans required time, patience, and additional funding. Jessica began pitching these initiatives to philanthropic organizations and socially minded investors, emphasizing that inclusion was not just ethical but essential for Unity's success. Meanwhile, a growing coalition of critics continued to challenge Unity's expansion. Some accused the project of overstepping privacy boundaries, others feared job displacement due to automation. Jessica understood the fears: change often came with uncertainty and loss. She prioritized open communication, holding town halls and live Q&A sessions where people could voice concerns and get honest answers. One memorable event brought together factory workers worried about automation and tech experts who explained how Unity aimed to create new types of jobs rather than eliminate them. The dialogue was raw and sometimes uncomfortable but vital for building trust. On a personal level, Jessica felt the strain. The relentless pace left little room for rest. One evening, after a long day of meetings, she found herself walking through a quiet neighborhood park. The soft rustling of leaves and distant laughter from children playing provided a brief respite. Marcus joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "You need breaks like this," he said gently. "You can't pour from an empty cup." Jessica nodded, grateful for his steady presence. Together, they talked about the future, both of Unity and their own lives. As summer deepened, Jessica received an unexpected call from a federal agency proposing a pilot partnership to integrate Unity's platform into national disaster response efforts. The idea was ambitious: leveraging Unity's real-time data and community networks to improve emergency preparedness and relief across the country. It was a huge opportunity but also a significant challenge. Coordinating with multiple government agencies required navigating bureaucratic hurdles and intense political scrutiny. Jessica assembled a dedicated task force to manage the project. They worked tirelessly to align Unity's technology with federal requirements while preserving its core values of transparency and community empowerment. The project's kickoff coincided with a series of severe wildfires in the western states. Unity's system helped monitor fire spread, coordinate evacuations, and distribute resources efficiently. The real-time data and local engagement saved lives and mitigated damage. The success bolstered Unity's reputation as more than a social experiment, it was becoming an indispensable public good. However, the high-profile partnership also intensified debates about data security and government surveillance. Privacy advocates warned against potential misuse of sensitive information. Jessica responded by reinforcing Unity's strict data protection policies and inviting independent watchdogs to audit the system regularly. She publicly emphasized that control remained with the communities, not the government or corporations. Meanwhile, Emily's Robotics Club launched a new project focused on environmental cleanup, inspired by the wildfires. Jessica watched with pride as the young team combined creativity with purpose, embodying the spirit of Unity's mission. Back in South Bend, Jessica continued to nurture the local pilot site as a model of inclusive innovation. She expanded programs to support small businesses with digital tools and offered scholarships for tech education to underrepresented youth. The community's fabric grew stronger, stitched together by shared challenges and collective solutions. Yet, amid progress, Jessica faced a personal crossroads. The demands of leadership weighed heavily on her relationships and well-being. During a rare weekend off, she reconnected with her family, finding solace in old stories and quiet moments. Her mother's advice echoed, "Remember who you are and why you started." Refreshed, Jessica returned with renewed determination. She convened a strategic retreat with her core team to reflect on lessons learned and envision the next phase. They agreed Unity had to evolve beyond technology into a movement rooted in equity, empathy, and empowerment. They planned to launch a national mentorship program connecting experienced community leaders with emerging innovators, fostering a network of changemakers across America. As summer turned to fall, Jessica felt the weight of possibility pressing on her shoulders. The challenges were immense, but so was the promise. Unity had sparked a conversation about what America could be, a place where technology bridges divides, amplifies voices, and creates opportunities for all. Jessica stood on the precipice of that future, ready to lead the way, knowing the journey was far from over but the destination worth every step. As fall settled in, the atmosphere around Unity shifted. The initial excitement gave way to a sobering realization: large-scale change was slower and messier than anyone had anticipated. Jessica felt this acutely as she grappled with the growing complexity of managing a rapidly expanding technology intertwined with deeply rooted social issues. One morning, she sat in the Unity Hub, scrolling through community feedback reports. A recurring theme emerged: people felt disconnected from the decision-making processes, worried that Unity's growth might prioritize efficiency over empathy. Jessica understood their concerns. The very technology designed to empower communities risked alienating them if it became too centralized or bureaucratic. She gathered her team and proposed a radical idea: creating a decentralized governance model where local councils, elected or appointed by residents, would have real authority over Unity's implementation in their areas. It was a bold move that risked complicating coordination but promised greater trust and engagement. The team debated the logistics, data security implications, and legal hurdles. Yet, everyone agreed this was the right direction. To pilot the idea, Jessica selected 3 diverse towns with varying demographics and challenges. She and her team worked closely with local leaders, facilitating workshops to build governance frameworks that reflected each community's unique culture and needs. The process was slow and sometimes contentious. In one town, disagreements over resource allocation sparked heated debates. Jessica mediated patiently, emphasizing transparency and mutual respect. Slowly, trust grew. Meanwhile, Unity's technological backbone underwent upgrades to support the decentralized system, allowing localized data control and decision-making while maintaining overall network integrity. The challenge was to ensure unity without uniformity. As winter approached, Jessica received troubling news. A key software vulnerability had been discovered by an external cybersecurity firm. Although no breach had occurred, the flaw could potentially expose sensitive information. The revelation sent shockwaves through Unity's leadership and users. Jessica acted swiftly, mobilizing her engineers to develop and deploy patches while communicating openly with the public. She held press conferences to explain the issue and the steps taken, reaffirming Unity's commitment to privacy and security. The incident tested the community's faith but also reinforced the importance of transparency in building lasting trust. On a personal level, the pressure began to take its toll. Jessica found herself overwhelmed, juggling crises and strategic planning while struggling to maintain balance in her personal life. One cold evening, Marcus invited her to a quiet cafe. Over steaming cups of coffee, he reminded her that leadership was not just about pushing forward but knowing when to pause and recharge. His words resonated. Jessica resolved to delegate more, trusting her capable team to share the load. Around the same time, Emily's Robotics Club unveiled a new invention, a low-cost, solar-powered water purifier designed for communities lacking clean water access. Inspired by Unity's emphasis on practical innovation, the project captured national attention. Jessica arranged for Emily and her team to present at a tech expo, where their work received accolades and offers of support. The success energized Jessica, reminding her of the power of youth and grassroots creativity. Yet challenges remained. In one pilot town, local politics threatened to undermine Unity's decentralized council. Competing factions vied for control, risking fragmentation and stalled progress. Jessica intervened delicately, facilitating dialogues and workshops focused on conflict resolution and shared vision. The experience underscored the reality that technology alone could not solve social fractures but could serve as a platform for healing and cooperation. As the year drew to a close, Jessica reflected on Unity's journey. From a daring idea to a growing movement, it had encountered setbacks, skepticism, and resistance. But it had also sparked hope, built connections, and demonstrated the potential of technology grounded in human values. She penned a letter to the community titled "The Road Ahead," acknowledging the difficulties and affirming the collective commitment to continue learning, adapting, and growing together. The letter was shared widely, sparking conversations and inspiring renewed dedication. In a quiet moment before the holidays, Jessica stood overlooking South Bend from the Unity Hub's rooftop. Snow gently blanketed the streets below, softening the city's edges. She thought of the families who had welcomed Unity into their lives, the activists who challenged its assumptions, the skeptics who pushed for accountability. Each voice mattered. She felt a surge of gratitude and determination. The path was far from straight or smooth, but it was theirs to walk. And with every step, they moved closer to a future where technology truly served the people, bridged divides, and transformed challenges into opportunities. As she looked up at the night sky, Jessica whispered a quiet promise: no matter what came next, Unity would endure, because it belonged to all of them. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The new year dawned with fresh energy and daunting challenges as Jessica prepared to lead Unity into its most critical phase yet: national expansion. The pilot programs in South Bend and the other test towns had laid important groundwork, but scaling Unity across a country as vast and diverse as America was an entirely different endeavor. Jessica woke early that January morning, the cold air sharp against the windowpane, and reviewed the detailed rollout plan. It was ambitious, targeting urban centers, rural communities, and tribal lands, each with unique social, economic, and cultural dynamics. She knew the stakes: success could redefine how Americans engaged with technology and one another, failure could deepen mistrust and inequality. First on the agenda was building partnerships with local governments and community organizations. Jessica and her team traveled extensively, from Detroit's struggling neighborhoods to remote areas of the Southwest, listening closely to the hopes and fears of residents. In Detroit, she met with Marcus Reynolds, a passionate community organizer who had witnessed firsthand the impact of disinvestment and wanted Unity to provide real, tangible resources rather than empty promises. Marcus became a key ally, helping tailor Unity's offerings to fit Detroit's needs, from job training programs focused on renewable energy to neighborhood safety initiatives using smart sensors. Meanwhile, in New Mexico, Jessica engaged with tribal leaders who emphasized sovereignty and control over their data and infrastructure. These conversations deepened Jessica's appreciation for the delicate balance Unity needed to maintain between innovation and respect for local autonomy. As contracts were signed and pilot projects launched, technical teams worked feverishly to integrate Unity's platform with existing municipal systems while ensuring privacy protections remained ironclad. The complexity of these integrations tested the engineers and planners alike, requiring creative problem-solving and patience. The media spotlight intensified. National outlets featured stories about Unity's promise but also raised critical questions about surveillance, equity, and corporate influence. Jessica welcomed the scrutiny, seeing it as an opportunity to demonstrate transparency and accountability. She participated in interviews and panel discussions, candidly addressing concerns and sharing lessons learned from early implementations. One recurring challenge was overcoming digital divides. Many communities lacked adequate internet infrastructure, limiting access to Unity's services. Jessica prioritized partnerships with telecom providers and nonprofit organizations to expand connectivity, advocating for public policies that treated internet access as a fundamental right. In cities like Detroit, she witnessed community tech hubs emerge, places where residents could learn, collaborate, and innovate together. These hubs became vital centers of empowerment, embodying Unity's vision of technology as a tool for inclusion and growth. However, not all responses were positive. Some local politicians viewed Unity as a threat to existing power structures or feared loss of control. Lobbyists from entrenched interests pushed back, spreading misinformation about the platform's intentions. Jessica found herself navigating a political minefield, relying on data, personal stories, and persistent dialogue to build bridges. Her growing public profile brought both admiration and criticism. Social media buzzed with debates, some hailed her as a visionary, others accused her of naivety or overreach. Despite the noise, Jessica remained grounded, drawing strength from the communities she served and the team around her. Back home, Emily's achievements continued to inspire. The water purifier project had secured additional funding to be deployed in underserved regions, and the robotics club expanded its membership, attracting young minds eager to create solutions. Jessica saw in Emily and her peers the future she was fighting for, one where curiosity and compassion drove progress. As spring blossomed, a breakthrough came. A pilot program in Detroit successfully reduced energy consumption citywide by integrating Unity's smart grid technology with community education efforts. This success caught the attention of national policymakers and environmental groups, opening doors to broader collaborations focused on climate resilience. Jessica seized the moment to advocate for policies that incentivized sustainable innovation and prioritized vulnerable populations. Yet, just as momentum built, a new challenge emerged. A sophisticated cyber attack targeted Unity's infrastructure, aiming to disrupt services and erode public trust. The incident rattled the team and sparked widespread concern. Jessica coordinated with cybersecurity experts, government agencies, and community partners to respond swiftly and transparently. The attack underscored the vulnerabilities inherent in any interconnected system and reinforced the necessity of constant vigilance and robust safeguards. Rather than retreat, Jessica framed the crisis as a learning opportunity, launching an initiative to strengthen digital literacy and security awareness among Unity users. The crisis galvanized the community, drawing together technologists, activists, and everyday citizens in defense of their shared platform. By summer, Unity had weathered the storm and continued its expansion, but Jessica knew the journey was far from over. Every advance revealed new complexities, every victory invited new questions. Through it all, she remained committed to a vision of technology that was accountable, inclusive, and driven by the people it served. Standing before a crowd at a national conference, Jessica spoke passionately about the future. Unity is more than a system, it's a promise. A promise that technology can break down barriers, heal divisions, and create opportunities for all Americans. This work isn't easy. It requires courage, empathy, and relentless dedication. But together, we can build a future where no one is left behind. The applause was thunderous, but Jessica's gaze lingered on the faces of those in the audience, leaders, innovators, skeptics, and dreamers alike. She saw reflected in them the complexity of the nation and the possibility of transformation. As the event concluded, Jessica returned to her hotel room, tired but hopeful. She called Marcus to share the day's successes and challenges. "We're on the right path," he said. "It's just going to take time, grit, and heart." Jessica smiled, knowing he was right. The road ahead would be long and winding, but with unity, they had begun a journey toward a better America, one where technology and humanity walked hand in hand. The summer heat was oppressive as Jessica and her team arrived in Phoenix, Arizona, for the next phase of Unity's expansion. The city's sprawling landscape presented a microcosm of America's challenges: rapid population growth, strained infrastructure, water scarcity, and a diverse population facing economic uncertainty. Jessica felt the weight of responsibility keenly. Here, Unity had the potential to address environmental issues while also promoting social equity. Their first priority was launching a pilot focused on water management, a critical concern for the desert city. Unity's sensors and AI-driven analytics could optimize irrigation, detect leaks, and forecast shortages with unprecedented accuracy. However, technology was only part of the solution. Jessica insisted on involving community leaders, farmers, and everyday residents to ensure the system addressed real needs and earned local trust. During a town hall meeting, she listened as concerns emerged about data privacy and the fear that automated controls might replace jobs or marginalize voices. One elderly farmer, Thomas, voiced the worries of many: "We don't want machines making decisions about our land without us." Jessica acknowledged these fears openly. She explained that Unity's approach was collaborative, designed to augment human judgment rather than replace it. She proposed establishing a local advisory board that would include farmers, city officials, and residents to oversee the project. This approach was met with cautious optimism. Meanwhile, Unity's team worked with Phoenix's utilities to integrate their smart water management system, navigating bureaucratic hurdles and technical glitches. Engineers conducted field tests under the scorching sun, fine-tuning sensors and data streams. Jessica made sure to document progress and setbacks alike, sharing updates through community newsletters and social media to maintain transparency. Outside the technical realm, Jessica faced internal challenges. Rapid expansion strained her leadership and the company's culture. Staff turnover increased as the pressures of long hours and high stakes took their toll. Jessica prioritized morale by organizing team retreats and promoting open dialogue about mental health and work-life balance. She reached out personally to key team members, offering support and encouragement. In the midst of these efforts, a breakthrough emerged. Unity's water management system detected a critical leak in an old pipeline supplying a low-income neighborhood. Swift action prevented a major disruption and saved thousands of gallons of water. Residents expressed gratitude, sharing stories of how previous water shortages had affected their daily lives. The success strengthened community trust and underscored Unity's practical impact. Yet, Jessica knew the work was far from finished. She broadened Unity's scope in Phoenix to include air quality monitoring, connecting sensors across the city to identify pollution hotspots and inform public health initiatives. Collaborations with local schools introduced educational programs, inspiring students to engage with environmental science and technology. One teenager, Maya, stood out with her innovative ideas and passion for community activism. Jessica mentored Maya, seeing in her the next generation of leaders who could carry Unity's mission forward. Nationally, Unity's profile continued to rise. Jessica was invited to testify before a congressional committee on the role of technology in climate resilience and social justice. She spoke candidly about the promise and pitfalls, urging lawmakers to support equitable access to innovation and to protect citizens' rights in a digital age. Her testimony resonated across political divides, earning praise and sparking debate. However, not everyone was supportive. Powerful interest groups pushed back, lobbying against regulations and funding that favored decentralized, community-driven models. Jessica found herself navigating a complex political landscape, advocating for policies aligned with Unity's values while remaining pragmatic about compromises. Amid these external pressures, Jessica confronted an internal ethical dilemma. A major corporate partner proposed integrating Unity's data with their own consumer analytics to develop targeted marketing campaigns. The offer promised significant revenue that could accelerate expansion but raised red flags about user privacy and commercial exploitation. Jessica convened an emergency meeting with her leadership team. After intense discussions, they unanimously rejected the partnership, reaffirming Unity's commitment to privacy and community control. This decision came at a cost but strengthened the organization's integrity and trustworthiness. As fall approached, Unity's Phoenix projects showed promising results. Water and air quality improved measurably, and community engagement deepened. Jessica organized a public event to celebrate these milestones, inviting residents, officials, and partners. Speeches were heartfelt, stories of transformation shared, and plans for future initiatives outlined. The event was a reminder that behind every data point and algorithm were real people whose lives were changing. Back in South Bend, Jessica received a surprise visitor, her father, who had kept a low profile throughout her career. Their reunion was bittersweet, marked by years of distance and unresolved tensions. Over coffee, he expressed pride in her accomplishments but also concern about the personal sacrifices she'd made. Jessica listened, grateful for the chance to reconnect but aware that the road ahead required balancing ambition with self-care and relationships. As winter neared, Jessica returned to Phoenix for a final review before preparing for the next wave of expansion. Standing on a hill overlooking the city lights, she reflected on the journey so far. Unity had faced skepticism, setbacks, and ethical quandaries but had also sparked hope, empowered communities, and demonstrated the power of technology rooted in humanity. The path ahead was uncertain but full of promise. Jessica knew that true change took time, perseverance, and unwavering commitment to values. She felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited, driven by the belief that together, they could build a better America, one invention, one community, and one person at a time. Spring brought with it a renewed sense of urgency for Jessica and the Unity team as they prepared to tackle one of the nation's most entrenched problems, the education gap. Schools across the country struggled with unequal resources, outdated curricula, and the digital divide, issues magnified by the recent pandemic. Jessica believed Unity's technology could play a transformative role by creating personalized learning experiences, connecting students to mentors, and providing communities with real-time data to tailor educational programs. The first step was partnering with a pilot school district in Cleveland, Ohio, where disparities in achievement were stark but community spirit was strong. Jessica arrived early to meet with Superintendent Karen Davis, a pragmatic yet hopeful leader determined to make a difference despite budget constraints. They discussed the challenges facing students. Lack of access to technology at home, large class sizes, and limited extracurricular opportunities. Jessica proposed a multifaceted approach leveraging Unity's platform to bridge these gaps. Over the next weeks, engineers and educators collaborated to customize a digital learning ecosystem that could adapt to each student's needs, monitor progress, and provide timely interventions. The system also included tools for teachers to share best practices and for parents to engage more deeply in their children's education. As implementation began, Jessica spent time in classrooms, witnessing firsthand how students interacted with the new tools. She met Marcus's niece, Tanya, a bright but shy teenager who struggled to keep up in traditional settings. With Unity's personalized support, Tanya's confidence blossomed, and she eagerly shared her aspirations to become an engineer. These moments fueled Jessica's determination. However, not everything went smoothly. Some educators were skeptical of technology replacing traditional methods, fearing it might depersonalize learning or overwhelm already stretched staff. Jessica organized workshops and listening sessions, emphasizing that Unity's tools were designed to support, not supplant, human connection and creativity. Slowly, attitudes shifted as early successes became evident. Community engagement was critical. Jessica helped establish parent advisory groups and partnered with local nonprofits to ensure access to devices and internet connectivity for all students. The digital divide was not just a technical problem but a social one, requiring holistic solutions. Meanwhile, the national political climate around education was fraught, with debates over funding, curriculum content, and standardized testing. Jessica navigated these contentious waters by focusing on data-driven outcomes and stories from the community, appealing to diverse stakeholders' shared goal of empowering young people. Media coverage highlighted Unity's approach as a hopeful model amid a polarized landscape. Yet, challenges arose when a data breach incident occurred, exposing some student information due to a contractor's security lapse. The breach was quickly contained, but the impact was profound. Jessica addressed the community directly, apologizing and outlining steps to strengthen safeguards and transparency. The incident underscored the high stakes involved when dealing with sensitive information and the necessity of vigilance and trust building. Through this adversity, the Cleveland pilot continued to grow. Test scores improved modestly but meaningfully, attendance increased, and dropout rates declined. Teachers reported greater job satisfaction, and parents expressed appreciation for the newfound ability to track and support their children's progress. Jessica also connected with local college programs to create pathways for students like Tanya, linking education with career opportunities. Inspired by these developments, Jessica sought to expand Unity's educational initiatives nationwide. She convened a summit of educators, technologists, policymakers, and students to share insights and co-create strategies. The gathering was electric, filled with ideas, debates, and a shared vision of a future where every child had access to quality education tailored to their potential. One student speaker, Maya from Phoenix, delivered a stirring call to action, reminding everyone that education was not a privilege but a right. Jessica felt a surge of hope as she listened. Despite setbacks and skepticism, progress was possible when technology was guided by empathy and community voices. At home, Emily continued to innovate with her robotics team, now mentoring younger students and expanding projects to include environmental monitoring and assistive devices for people with disabilities. Jessica saw how the cycle of inspiration and empowerment could ripple outward, sparking change beyond any single invention. As summer approached, Jessica reflected on the past year's lessons. Unity had moved from concept to concrete impact, navigating complexities of privacy, equity, politics, and human emotion. The journey reaffirmed her belief that technology alone was not a panacea but a powerful tool when wielded with care, transparency, and inclusivity. The future remained uncertain, filled with challenges both old and new. But Jessica was undeterred. She had seen lives touched, communities strengthened, and possibilities expanded. She knew the work ahead required patience, resilience, and collaboration across divides. Standing on the rooftop of the Unity Hub, watching the city skyline bathed in twilight, Jessica whispered a quiet promise to herself and the millions counting on Unity. To keep pushing forward, learning from mistakes, and holding fast to the vision that technology could, indeed, help solve America's biggest problems, one child, one family, and one community at a time. The crisp autumn air in Boston brought with it new opportunities and fresh challenges for Jessica and the Unity team. This time, the focus was on healthcare, a sector burdened with inequities, soaring costs, and fractured systems. Jessica had long believed that Unity's interconnected platform could serve as a bridge, linking patients, providers, and public health officials in a way that improved outcomes and accessibility. The pilot program launched in collaboration with Boston Medical Center and several community clinics aimed to create a comprehensive health data network. This system would empower patients to track their medical history, monitor chronic conditions, and receive personalized care recommendations, all while maintaining strict privacy protections. Jessica understood that trust was paramount in healthcare, where lives and sensitive information were at stake. To build this trust, she prioritized transparency and patient involvement. Community forums brought together patients, doctors, and advocates to shape the program's design and address concerns. She met with Maria, a single mother managing diabetes for herself and her son, who shared stories of frustration with disjointed care and confusing medical bills. Maria's voice became a touchstone for Jessica, a reminder that technology must serve real people, not just metrics. The rollout wasn't without hurdles. Integration with legacy hospital systems proved technically complex, and some providers resisted change, worried about workflow disruptions or liability. Jessica encouraged an iterative approach, gathering feedback, making adjustments, and providing training to ease transitions. Meanwhile, data security remained a constant focus, especially after previous incidents. Unity implemented multi-layered encryption and gave patients control over who could access their information. A major breakthrough came when the system successfully flagged early warning signs in several patients, enabling timely interventions that prevented hospitalizations. This success was celebrated as a proof of concept and strengthened support among stakeholders. Jessica also forged partnerships with local universities to analyze anonymized data for public health trends, aiding efforts to combat opioid addiction, asthma, and other pressing issues. At the same time, Unity's mental health initiatives expanded, providing virtual counseling and support networks accessible via the platform. Jessica saw firsthand the stigma that often prevented people from seeking help and was heartened by stories of individuals finding solace and strength through these services. As the pilot matured, Jessica was invited to a National Health Technology Summit in Washington, D.C., where she shared Unity's approach and lessons learned. The reception was mixed, enthusiastic from some quarters but cautious from others wary of over-reliance on technology or corporate involvement. Jessica navigated the complex political and ethical landscape with her trademark candor, emphasizing that technology must be a tool for empowerment, not control. However, tension surfaced when a major insurance company proposed partnering with Unity to develop predictive models for risk assessment and premium pricing. The proposal promised lucrative funding but risked exacerbating inequities by penalizing vulnerable populations. Jessica and her team debated fiercely and ultimately declined, reaffirming their commitment to fairness and inclusion. The decision drew both praise and criticism but solidified Unity's ethical stance. On the ground, Jessica witnessed the tangible impact of their work in Boston neighborhoods. Patients like Maria reported improved health and confidence in managing their conditions. Clinics noted better coordination and reduced costs. Yet, Jessica remained vigilant, knowing that systemic change was slow and fragile. She deepened engagement with policymakers, advocating for regulations that protected patient rights and encouraged innovation aligned with public good. Meanwhile, the media spotlight intensified. Stories of Unity's successes were balanced by investigations into privacy risks and the broader implications of AI in healthcare. Jessica embraced this scrutiny, inviting independent audits and publishing transparency reports. She believed openness was key to earning and maintaining public trust. At home, Jessica's relationship with Emily grew stronger. Emily's robotics team developed assistive devices inspired by their healthcare pilot, blending technology and compassion. Jessica saw her daughter's creativity as a beacon of hope and a reminder of why this work mattered. The year closed with a gala celebrating Unity's achievements and recommitting to the mission ahead. Jessica's keynote address resonated deeply. Technology alone cannot heal our wounds, but when it connects us, listens to us, and respects our dignity, it can be a powerful force for health and hope. As applause filled the room, Jessica felt a mix of pride and humility. The path was far from easy, the challenges many, but the potential to transform lives was undeniable. Looking toward the future, she resolved to keep pushing boundaries while staying true to the values that had guided Unity from the start: integrity, inclusivity, and an unwavering belief in the power of human connection. Winter's chill had barely lifted when Jessica set her sights on the next frontier, tackling homelessness in Seattle, a city grappling with rising numbers of unsheltered individuals and complex social dynamics. Jessica believed Unity's technology could provide more than just data. It could humanize the crisis and help connect people with tailored resources. Partnering with local nonprofits, city officials, and those with lived experience, Unity aimed to create a dynamic network that tracked available shelters, healthcare services, job training, and mental health support in real time. The goal was to break down barriers and improve coordination across agencies often siloed and overwhelmed. Jessica's approach was deeply personal. She had met David, a veteran struggling with PTSD and homelessness, during a community outreach event. His story haunted her: the systemic failures, the stigma, the isolation. She promised herself Unity would do better. Launching the pilot was no easy feat. Data collection required trust and consent from a population often wary of surveillance and bureaucracy. Jessica and her team worked closely with outreach workers and peer advocates to build relationships and ensure that the technology served as a tool for empowerment, not control. Early on, the network revealed gaps and duplications in service delivery. Some shelters were overcrowded while others had unused capacity. Job training programs operated in isolation without clear referral pathways. Mental health services were stretched thin. Using this insight, city officials adjusted funding and coordination efforts, guided by real-time data rather than outdated reports. Meanwhile, Unity's platform enabled individuals like David to receive personalized notifications about available beds, health clinics, and employment opportunities near their location. This immediacy made a difference. David secured temporary housing and reconnected with counselors, slowly rebuilding stability. Stories like his fueled the team's passion. But the pilot also faced resistance. Some activists feared the technology might be used to justify aggressive policing or displacement. Jessica addressed these concerns directly, emphasizing transparency, ethical safeguards, and the central role of community oversight. Advisory committees included people with lived experience to ensure their voices shaped policies and implementation. Jessica's leadership style, open, empathetic, and collaborative, helped bridge divides and build trust. On the technical side, integrating data from diverse sources was a daunting challenge. City databases, nonprofit records, and mobile outreach inputs varied in format and quality. Unity's engineers developed sophisticated algorithms to reconcile discrepancies and protect privacy while providing actionable insights. The system's success depended not just on innovation but on adaptability and respect for complexity. As winter turned to spring, the pilot's impact became evident. Shelter utilization rates improved, wait times decreased, and more individuals accessed supportive services. Outreach workers reported feeling better equipped and less frustrated. David found steady employment and eventually moved into permanent housing. His progress inspired others and offered hope amid a crisis often viewed as intractable. Nationally, Unity's homelessness initiative attracted attention from other cities seeking scalable solutions. Jessica was invited to speak at conferences and collaborate with policymakers exploring data-driven approaches. Yet, she remained cautious, mindful that technology was no substitute for the deep social and economic reforms needed to address root causes. Unity's work was a piece of a larger puzzle. Back in Seattle, Jessica balanced public visibility with hands-on involvement, often joining outreach teams on the streets to stay grounded in the realities behind the data. These experiences reaffirmed her conviction that empathy must guide every line of code and every policy recommendation. As the pilot program matured, Jessica reflected on the profound lessons learned. The homeless crisis was not just about numbers or services but about dignity, connection, and community. Technology could illuminate pathways but could not replace the human spirit. Unity's success lay in amplifying voices too often unheard and linking fragmented efforts into a cohesive whole. At a public forum, Jessica shared these reflections, calling for compassion, collaboration, and innovation to go hand in hand. Her message resonated widely, sparking renewed dialogue and partnerships. Meanwhile, Emily's Robotics Club developed assistive devices inspired by the Homelessness Project, such as portable health monitors and solar-powered chargers, illustrating how technology could serve vulnerable populations creatively. Jessica saw in her daughter's work a microcosm of Unity's mission, small acts of invention with big heart. The chapter of Seattle closed with hope tempered by realism. The crisis was far from solved, but progress was undeniable. Jessica understood that sustained effort, humility, and partnership were essential as Unity prepared to scale its impact nationwide. Standing on a rooftop overlooking the city's skyline and encampments, she felt the weight of responsibility and the power of possibility. Technology, when wielded with conscience and courage, could help heal fractured communities and restore hope to the most marginalized. The journey ahead was long and uncertain, but Jessica was ready, driven by stories like David's, fueled by the belief that America's biggest problems required not just new inventions but new ways of caring for one another. Spring had arrived in Detroit, a city once synonymous with economic decline but now a beacon of revitalization and resilience, making it the next focus for Unity's ambitious plans. Jessica understood that addressing urban renewal went beyond infrastructure. It involved restoring community pride, creating sustainable jobs, and fostering innovation. Detroit's history of industrial might and subsequent hardships provided a poignant backdrop for Unity's integrated technology, which aimed to revitalize neighborhoods through smart infrastructure, green energy, and community-driven development. Partnering with city officials, local entrepreneurs, and residents, Unity launched a pilot program to transform vacant lots into solar-powered community hubs equipped with Wi-Fi, educational resources, and spaces for small businesses. Jessica's approach was holistic. She believed technology must be paired with economic opportunity and cultural renewal to create lasting change. In one meeting with Marcus, a longtime Detroit resident and local business owner, Jessica heard firsthand the frustration and hope intertwined in the city's narrative. Marcus shared stories of job losses and abandoned buildings but also dreams for a brighter future driven by local innovation. Inspired by this, Jessica pushed Unity to prioritize projects that would empower residents to lead their own revitalization. Challenges soon emerged. Funding constraints, bureaucratic red tape, and skepticism about the feasibility of high-tech solutions in economically distressed areas tested the team's resolve. Jessica fostered a culture of perseverance and creativity, encouraging partnerships with universities, nonprofits, and private investors to secure diverse support. The pilot's core technology, a network of solar microgrids connected to smart energy management systems, was designed to reduce costs and environmental impact while increasing energy reliability. Residents were trained to operate and maintain the systems, creating jobs and technical skills within the community. The hubs also hosted workshops on entrepreneurship, digital literacy, and sustainability, blending technology with empowerment. Jessica visited one of the newly opened hubs on a brisk spring morning and was greeted by a vibrant scene of children learning coding, elders attending health seminars, and small business owners collaborating on marketing strategies. This snapshot of community life was a testament to the potential of combining innovation with human connection. Meanwhile, data collected by Unity's sensors informed city planners about energy usage, traffic patterns, and environmental conditions, enabling more informed decisions and efficient allocation of resources. However, not all outcomes were positive. Initial deployments uncovered technical glitches, such as intermittent connectivity and sensor malfunctions, which frustrated users and required swift troubleshooting. Jessica prioritized transparency, keeping the community informed and involved in problem-solving, which strengthened trust despite setbacks. The narrative of Detroit's revival resonated widely. Media coverage highlighted Unity's efforts as a model for how technology could support urban renewal without displacement or gentrification. Jessica emphasized that community input and control were non-negotiable, pushing back against narratives that framed technological advancement as inherently elitist. Nationally, interest in the Detroit pilot spurred invitations for Jessica to speak at urban planning and sustainability conferences, where she advocated for inclusive innovation that honors history and culture. Back home, Jessica found renewed strength in her relationship with Emily, who shared her mother's passion for social impact through technology. Emily's robotics team developed a project focused on affordable energy solutions inspired by the Detroit pilot, blending creativity with practicality. Jessica saw in Emily the promise of the next generation carrying forward the torch of change. As summer approached, Unity prepared to scale the Detroit model to other post-industrial cities facing similar challenges. Jessica reflected on the lessons learned. Success depended not just on cutting-edge technology but on humility, patience, and deep partnership with communities. The city's scars and strengths were intertwined, and any solution had to honor that complexity. On a warm evening, standing on a rooftop overlooking Detroit's skyline, Jessica felt a surge of hope. The journey was far from over, but tangible progress offered a blueprint for reimagining America's urban future. Unity's vision was clear: technology that listens, empowers, and uplifts, helping to heal not just cities but the people who call them home. Jessica's next challenge took her to the heart of America's agricultural belt in Iowa, where small family farms faced mounting pressures from climate change, market volatility, and labor shortages. The farming community was skeptical of new technology, wary of disruptions to time-honored practices, yet desperate for solutions to keep their livelihoods alive. Jessica believed Unity's platform could serve as a vital tool, offering precision agriculture capabilities that combined satellite data, soil sensors, and AI-driven analytics to optimize crop yields, conserve water, and reduce chemical use. She partnered with local cooperative farmer groups and extension services to co-design a pilot program tailored to the unique needs of Midwestern farms. Early meetings were filled with tough questions and guarded optimism. Farmers like Tom, a third-generation corn grower, expressed both hope and frustration. "We want to feed the world, but it's harder every year." Jessica listened carefully, committed to ensuring the technology respected farmers' expertise rather than replacing it. The pilot deployed a network of sensors across diverse farm plots, capturing real-time data on soil moisture, nutrient levels, and weather patterns. Unity's AI processed this information to generate actionable recommendations on planting schedules, irrigation, and pest control, delivered via an easy-to-use app accessible even on basic smartphones. Workshops and hands-on training sessions empowered farmers to interpret data and make informed decisions. Jessica accompanied the team on visits to the fields, witnessing the pride and persistence etched in every furrow and stalk. Challenges arose as expected. Initial skepticism gave way to cautious experimentation, but technical glitches and connectivity issues in rural areas tested patience. Jessica prioritized listening and adaptability, encouraging ongoing feedback loops and quick fixes. The community's engagement grew as early results showed promise: improved crop health, reduced water usage, and cost savings. Local agronomists collaborated closely with Unity, blending traditional knowledge with cutting-edge insights. Jessica also worked to connect farmers with regional markets through the platform, facilitating fair pricing and reducing waste. Environmental benefits were notable. Precision application of fertilizers and pesticides helped mitigate runoff and pollution, supporting broader conservation goals. Jessica partnered with environmental groups to monitor impact and ensure sustainability. As harvest season approached, stories emerged of farmers who had avoided crop failures and increased profits thanks to data-driven decisions. Tom, once skeptical, became an enthusiastic advocate, sharing his experience at local fairs and farmer gatherings. Jessica saw how trust, built through respect and results, was transforming attitudes. However, not all outcomes were smooth. A severe storm damaged sensor equipment on several farms, disrupting data flow and highlighting vulnerabilities. Unity's rapid response and transparent communication reassured partners, but the incident underscored the need for resilient infrastructure and contingency planning. Jessica also navigated tensions between large agribusiness interests and smallholders wary of consolidation and loss of autonomy. Unity's commitment to equity and empowerment remained a guiding principle amid complex dynamics. The pilot's success attracted attention from state agricultural agencies and federal programs focused on innovation and sustainability. Jessica was invited to testify before a congressional committee considering technology investments in rural America. She emphasized the importance of inclusive design, community engagement, and environmental stewardship, urging policymakers to support farmers as vital stewards of the land. Back home, Jessica found balance in family moments with Emily, whose own projects now included environmental monitoring drones inspired by the Iowa pilot. Their conversations about technology's role in preserving nature and supporting people deepened Jessica's resolve. As the season closed, Jessica reflected on the delicate dance between tradition and innovation, human wisdom and machine learning. Agriculture, she realized, embodied America's future, rooted in history, facing urgent challenges, and ripe with potential for transformation. Unity's work in Iowa was not just about crops or profits but about sustaining a way of life and the land itself. Standing amid golden fields bathed in late afternoon sun, Jessica felt a profound connection to the earth and the people who cultivated it. The journey ahead promised trials and triumphs, but also hope that technology, when guided by respect and responsibility, could nourish both soil and soul. The summer heat in Phoenix was relentless, a stark reminder of the mounting water crisis gripping the American Southwest. Jessica knew that water scarcity was one of the most urgent problems facing the nation, threatening agriculture, communities, and ecosystems alike. Unity's next mission was clear: leverage the power of their interconnected technology to tackle water management challenges in this parched region. Partnering with the Arizona Department of Water Resources, local municipalities, and environmental groups, Unity launched an ambitious pilot aimed at creating a smart water network that monitored usage, detected leaks, and optimized distribution. The system integrated IoT sensors across homes, farms, and reservoirs, feeding data into AI algorithms designed to balance demand and conserve this precious resource. At community meetings, Jessica listened to voices from diverse backgrounds: farmers worried about irrigation restrictions, city residents coping with drought conditions, and activists advocating for sustainable practices. She understood the complexity of balancing competing needs and committed Unity to an inclusive, transparent process. Early deployment faced hurdles. Sensors had to withstand extreme heat and dust, data integration with legacy water infrastructure was complex, and some users were skeptical about privacy and surveillance. Jessica's team worked tirelessly to address these issues, prioritizing robust engineering and clear communication. Outreach efforts included educational campaigns highlighting the importance of conservation and how the technology empowered users to track and reduce their water footprint. One memorable encounter was with Rosa, a grandmother who managed a community garden and shared how water shortages threatened her plants and traditions. Rosa's story became a driving force behind Unity's commitment to support small-scale growers and community initiatives. As the smart water network came online, real-time data revealed inefficiencies and areas of waste previously invisible. Utility managers used these insights to prioritize repairs, adjust delivery schedules, and incentivize conservation behaviors. Farmers accessed precise irrigation recommendations tailored to crop types and soil conditions, reducing overwatering and preserving yields. City residents received alerts about leaks and usage spikes, enabling timely action. Jessica visited a farm where she saw firsthand the benefits of precision irrigation: healthier crops, lower costs, and less strain on limited water supplies. The impact extended beyond economics. Environmental monitoring indicated improved groundwater levels and healthier habitats for native species. Unity partnered with research institutions to analyze data trends and inform regional water policies. Yet, tension persisted around issues of equity and access. Lower-income neighborhoods often faced disproportionate shortages and infrastructure neglect. Jessica championed targeted investments to ensure the technology served all communities fairly, pushing back against narratives that framed conservation as a luxury for the privileged. Media coverage brought national attention to the pilot, with stories of innovation tempered by warnings of ongoing crisis. Jessica embraced the spotlight, using it to advocate for sustainable water management as a shared responsibility. Meanwhile, Emily's summer project involved designing low-cost, solar-powered irrigation sensors inspired by Unity's work, bridging generational passion for environmental stewardship. As monsoon rains finally arrived, bringing relief but also challenges of flood management, Unity's network adapted to monitor runoff and protect vulnerable areas. Jessica reflected on the interconnectedness of water, climate, and community resilience. She recognized that technology was a tool, not a panacea, requiring thoughtful governance and collective action. At a regional summit, Jessica spoke about the need to rethink water as a shared heritage rather than a commodity, urging collaboration across sectors and borders. She shared stories of Rosa, farmers, and families whose lives were touched by the pilot, reminding the audience that behind every data point was a human story. The chapter closed with a sunset over Phoenix's desert landscape, casting warm hues over a city striving to adapt and thrive. Jessica felt both urgency and hope. The crisis was daunting, but innovative, inclusive solutions offered pathways forward. Unity's smart water network was a step toward safeguarding life's most essential resource for generations to come. The journey was far from over, but the promise of technology guided by empathy and equity shone brightly in the desert heat. Jessica's journey next took her to Appalachia, a region often overlooked yet rich with culture, history, and untapped potential. Here, Unity sought to address one of America's most persistent issues, the opioid crisis that had devastated families and communities for decades. Partnering with local health agencies, advocacy groups, and affected families, Jessica envisioned a technology-driven intervention that combined real-time monitoring, personalized support, and community engagement to save lives and restore hope. The pilot program used wearable devices linked to Unity's platform to track individuals at risk of overdose, monitor vital signs, and alert emergency responders immediately if danger arose. The technology was integrated with counseling services and peer support networks, creating a safety net that extended beyond traditional healthcare. Jessica knew that stigma and mistrust were formidable barriers. She prioritized building relationships with community leaders and those with lived experience, ensuring the program was designed with empathy and respect. Early meetings were emotional, filled with stories of loss, resilience, and the desperate need for change. One encounter with Linda, a mother who had lost her son to overdose, profoundly impacted Jessica. Linda's advocacy and unwavering hope fueled the team's commitment. Implementing the pilot in rural areas posed logistical challenges. Limited internet access, privacy concerns, and the need for culturally sensitive approaches required adaptability and innovation. Unity developed offline-capable devices and prioritized data security to protect users. Community workshops educated families about the technology and resources available, fostering trust and participation. The pilot's early results were promising. Alerts enabled faster emergency response times, reducing fatalities. Integration with counseling services helped users access treatment and recovery programs tailored to their needs. Peer support groups, facilitated through Unity's network, created a sense of connection and accountability. Jessica often accompanied outreach workers to rural clinics and town halls, witnessing firsthand the power of technology combined with human compassion. However, the road was far from smooth. Funding limitations, regulatory hurdles, and resistance from some medical professionals slowed progress. Jessica leveraged her growing network to secure grants and partnerships, advocating for policy reforms that supported innovative solutions. She also addressed ethical questions around surveillance and consent, ensuring community voices guided implementation. The pilot attracted national attention as a model for how technology could complement, not replace, human care in addressing addiction. Jessica was invited to present findings at public health conferences and participated in policy discussions about scaling effective interventions. Meanwhile, Emily channeled her energy into creating an app that connected users to mental health resources and peer mentors, inspired by the pilot's holistic approach. Jessica saw in her daughter a continuation of the mission to blend technology with empathy. As fall arrived, Jessica reflected on the profound lessons learned. The opioid crisis was not just a medical issue but a social one, rooted in pain, trauma, and isolation. Technology could provide tools and connections, but healing required community, dignity, and sustained support. Standing in a small Appalachian town, surrounded by the rolling hills and resilient people, Jessica felt both humility and determination. The journey ahead was long, but each life saved and each connection made was a step toward recovery and renewal. Unity's approach exemplified how innovation, guided by respect and collaboration, could transform despair into hope. The chapter closed with a community vigil honoring those lost and celebrating progress, a poignant reminder of the stakes and the power of human connection in the face of America's biggest problems. Jessica's work was gaining momentum, but the final frontier she knew she had to face was the challenge of education. A system grappling with inequality, outdated curricula, and a widening skills gap in a rapidly evolving economy. The COVID-19 pandemic had only deepened these issues, exposing disparities in access to technology and support. Jessica envisioned Unity's platform as a way to personalize learning, connect students with resources, and empower teachers with real-time data. Partnering with public school districts in Chicago, one of America's largest and most diverse urban centers, Unity launched an ambitious pilot to transform education through technology that was both innovative and equitable. The project focused on under-resourced schools where students faced socioeconomic challenges that often limited opportunities. Jessica met with educators like Mrs. Thompson, a veteran teacher who expressed both exhaustion and hope. Our kids deserve tools that meet them where they are. Unity's platform used AI to analyze individual learning styles, strengths, and gaps, generating customized lesson plans and feedback. It integrated virtual reality modules for immersive experiences in science, history, and the arts, making learning engaging and accessible. Teachers received dashboards that tracked student progress in real time, enabling timely interventions and personalized support. Recognizing the importance of family and community, the platform included features to connect parents with teachers and resources, fostering collaboration beyond the classroom. The pilot also provided devices and internet access to bridge the digital divide, ensuring no student was left behind. Initial skepticism from educators and parents gradually shifted as students showed improved engagement and performance. Jessica observed virtual classrooms where children from diverse backgrounds explored virtual ecosystems or practiced coding with enthusiasm. However, the pilot also revealed challenges. Some teachers felt overwhelmed by new technology demands, requiring ongoing training and support. Data privacy concerns surfaced among parents, prompting Jessica to advocate for transparent policies and robust protections. The program confronted structural inequalities that technology alone could not solve, highlighting the need for broader systemic reform. Jessica collaborated with education experts, community leaders, and policymakers to align Unity's efforts with equity goals. Media attention spotlighted the pilot's successes and challenges, sparking national conversations about the future of education. Jessica spoke at education forums, emphasizing that technology should enhance, not replace, the human elements of teaching and learning. Meanwhile, Emily's school robotics team developed a project aimed at creating affordable learning aids for students with disabilities, inspired by Unity's inclusive vision. Jessica found joy in these moments, seeing the next generation embrace innovation with heart. As the school year progressed, stories emerged of students gaining confidence, discovering passions, and bridging gaps once thought insurmountable. A young girl named Mia, struggling with reading difficulties, found new hope through tailored virtual tutoring, embodying the pilot's promise. Jessica reflected on the profound responsibility of shaping futures through education. She knew that technology was a powerful tool but only part of a larger effort to create opportunities and dismantle barriers. Standing outside a vibrant Chicago schoolyard filled with laughter and learning, Jessica felt a renewed sense of purpose. The chapter closed with a vision of a more inclusive, dynamic education system, one that honored diversity, fostered curiosity, and prepared all students to thrive in a changing world. Unity's work was a testament to how innovation, empathy, and partnership could reimagine America's classrooms and empower the leaders of tomorrow. The culmination of Jessica's journey brought her back to the heart of Unity's mission, bridging technology and humanity to create a better America. With pilots completed in cities, farms, deserts, and mountains, the evidence was clear: Elon Musk's new invention was more than a gadget, it was a framework for solving complex, interconnected challenges by empowering people. Now came the moment of scaling, refining, and reflecting on what this meant for the future. Jessica convened a gathering of stakeholders from every pilot, community leaders, technologists, policymakers, families, and activists. The event, held in Washington, D.C., was a microcosm of the nation's diversity and potential. Jessica opened with a question that had guided her from the start: what if we could harness innovation not to replace, but to uplift everyone? Stories poured forth. Farmers in Iowa who saved their crops, Detroit neighborhoods reborn, drought-threatened cities conserving water, families recovering from addiction, and students discovering new worlds through learning. The narrative was powerful, but Jessica emphasized the need for ongoing vigilance. Technology was not a silver bullet but a tool wielded by humans with intention, empathy, and responsibility. She shared lessons learned, the importance of inclusivity, humility, and community partnership. Jessica highlighted how Unity's success hinged on listening deeply to those most affected, designing solutions that respected their knowledge and aspirations. The room buzzed with energy and cautious optimism, aware of obstacles ahead: inequality, political division, and rapid change. Jessica proposed a bold vision for a national initiative to expand Unity's technology with transparent governance and equitable access, calling for collaboration across sectors and borders. Elon Musk himself joined via video, reinforcing the commitment to pushing boundaries while prioritizing humanity's well-being. The moment was electric, a fusion of innovation and idealism. After the event, Jessica retreated to reflect on her own transformation. The woman who had begun this journey driven by ambition had grown into a leader grounded in compassion and wisdom. She thought of Emily, who had become a symbol of hope and the power of youthful creativity. Jessica realized that real change came not from invention alone but from nurturing connections, trust, and resilience. The final pages of Unity's story were still being written, but the foundation was strong. In a quiet evening at home, Jessica penned a letter to the nation, a message about the power of love, sacrifice, and shared destiny. "Life is full of surprises," she wrote, "but love will always lead the way. Together, we can face any challenge and build a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around." The chapter closed with a scene of Jessica and Emily walking through a park, sunlight filtering through the trees, symbolizing renewal and hope. The future was uncertain, but the journey had proven one truth. When innovation meets heart, America's biggest problems can become opportunities for a new beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?